This is Bigger Questions with your host, Robert Martin.
Welcome to Bigger Questions, recorded live in Melbourne's CBD. Today's big question: what is wrong with the world? My guest today is Dr. Gillian Porter. Gillian has been working as a doctor for the past 8 years and is currently a specialist GP in Melbourne's eastern suburbs. She has lived in Canberra, Adelaide and Melbourne, and in her spare time has fun with her growing family and in her church community in the inner west of Melbourne. And she joins me now. Please welcome Dr. Gillian Porter. Gillian, welcome to Bigger Questions.
Thanks for having me.
That's great. Now, Gillian, you're a GP, and your initials are GP.
Yes.
Was that deliberate?
Well, no, I think it was just meant to be. My middle name actually also starts with a P, so I've always been a GP, and maybe it just somehow subconsciously guided my career choice.
So anyway, to kick off Bigger Questions, we like to ask a couple of smaller questions. We like to have a bit of fun on the show. Today we're talking with Gillian Porter about what is wrong with the world. So Gillian, our smaller questions to you today are: how well do you know doctor songs? Now, there's a surprising number of songs written about doctors. Do you sing doctor songs around your practice at all?
No.
Do you know many doctor songs?
I think the closest I know is nursery rhymes, like I sing Miss Polly Has a Dolly every night to my son, but I'm not sure I know any proper doctor songs.
Okay, well, we'll find out how well you can guess doctor songs. There's two questions, both multiple choice.
Okay.
In the 1979 hit song Doctor, Doctor, Robert Palmer complained about having something wrong with him. He sang, "Doctor, Doctor, give me the news." What was his problem? Was it A, I got a bad case of the flu? B, I got a bad case of a lump that grew? C, I got a bad rash and haven't a clue? Or D, I got a bad case of loving you? So which of those was his problem?
It's a hard call.
Yeah.
The flu is pretty common.
Yeah, that's right. And you'd write songs about that as well, I'm sure.
Exactly, that's
Yeah.
right. And rashes are very funny in songs, but
That's
I
right.
think I'm going to have to go for D.
Yeah, and you're right. Yes, that's right, yeah. Have any patients sung that song to you?
No.
No.
Thank God for that.
That's right, yeah. I suppose it might be a bit inappropriate given,
Probably.
patient. Did your husband sing that song to you at
No.
all? No? Maybe he should. Okay,
I'll tell him.
Question 2. In the 1960s, the great Ray Charles sang, "I don't need no doctor." Why did he not need a doctor? Was it A, because he knew better than what the doctor had to say? Was it B, because he never got sick, there was nothing wrong with him? Was it C, because his misery was caused by his lover being away for too long? Or was it D, because he had just finished studying medicine himself and would be able to diagnose any medical problems? So why did Ray Charles not need a doctor?
Knowing that this is about a song, I think that's probably C.
And you are right. Yes, that's
Amazing.
right. So Gillian, in our smaller questions, you got 2 out of 2 smaller questions right. Please give Gillian a big round of applause.
What a relief.
So, well done. Now, Gillian, we're talking about what's wrong with the world. Now, as a GP, I assume that people generally come to you when something is wrong with their health?
Yes.
Yeah.
Generally, probably a few instances where people come because they want to check up, but that's very, very rare. In general, if they're sick, that's when they come. I mean, who really wants to go to a doctor when they're not sick?
Yes, that's true, yeah. Is it a bad experience, harrowing experience?
Well, people seem to think it is.
Right.
Yeah.
So what sort of things do you deal with, or what sort of things do people come to talk to you about?
Well, I guess people come and see me when they've got something wrong with them, so they've got some symptoms, they're feeling sick, they want some medicine, they want some treatment, they want some expert advice.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so they're looking for someone to help fix them.
So what sort of symptoms require attention? If someone came presenting, what would be concerning for you?
What's concerning? Well, the things that I'm always thinking about is this life-threatening, and how urgently do we need to do something about it? Everyone has different thresholds for coming to see me. Some people will come when they've just got the beginning of a sniffle or the first cough of a cold, but some people...
Like man flu.
Like man flu, yeah. Some people wait until they're almost at death's door before they come, and they don't even realise that.
Have you had anyone not nearly on death's door come to you then?
Right, yeah, absolutely. So a few weeks ago, a man came and saw me, and he had some sore legs, and he wanted me to help with his sore legs. And when I looked at him, he was fluorescent yellow. And I asked him, "Do you know that you're fluorescent yellow?" And he said, "No, what are you talking about?" But his skin was all yellow, and he had really severe liver disease and needed to go to hospital. So he didn't realise that he was that sick. He just came for his legs, but really the underlying thing was that he was really sick with liver disease. So.
And you were able to help him?
Yes, I was able to get him some help, do some tests, and send him to the right people who could treat him in hospitals.
So why do people need doctors then?
Why do we need doctors? I guess because we're not all trained. We don't all know how to put together what the things they're experiencing that's wrong with us, as in working out what it is that's underlying it. And also we're looking for advice for treatment, and really we want a cure, don't we? So why do you go to the doctor when you've had a cough for 3 weeks? You're sick of the cough. You go to the doctor for a cure. People come and see me because they want me to work out what's going on and give them a treatment for it. Yeah.
Now, to go to the doctor requires you sort of admitting that something's wrong with you. Does that take some humility, do you think?
Yeah, I think so. I think it takes humility because it means you don't necessarily know how to fix it yourself, or you can't fix it yourself. I think we are pretty self-sufficient people, and we like to be able to fix our own problems and keep ourselves healthy and strong. And it takes a bit of humility to actually admit, no, I can't do this myself. I have to ask someone else to tell me what's wrong with me and what they think is the best thing to treat it with. And it means it's out of your control. So that's definitely
But I mean, everyone's going to get
humility.
sick at some point. Like, sure there's no shame in being sick?
Of course not. Of course there's no shame in being sick, but I think we like to be in control of our lives, don't we? And we like to think that everything's going okay and that we have it all together. And to admit that something's wrong and that we can't do anything about it, actually, it means that we have to go and seek someone else's help and advice, and that's, can be difficult.
So how do you convince someone that they're sick?
It depends what's wrong with them. A lot of people sort of already know, they've already got the signs in front of them. So they've got a sniffle, they've got a cough like me at the moment. But other people, you can have illnesses that you don't even realise that's going on, like this man who was yellow, or someone with high blood pressure, for example. They might not have any symptoms to say that they've got a problem underneath. So how do I convince them? It's about demonstrating the evidence to them. So taking the blood pressure and showing them the numbers and telling them what's normal, or taking the blood test and showing them, here's some evidence that you're sick, or even just pointing things out. That you're sitting there and you're feeling short of breath, but it's been like that for so long. No, actually, that's something wrong. That's not normal, and I think sometimes when we've lived with something for a while, we don't realise that it's not normal, and so it takes someone else looking from outside, who perhaps might have, a different frame to look at you with, like a doctor thinks about these things, to actually point it out.
To diagnose that.
And diagnose the problem,
yeah. Now, you said that sometimes healthy people come to talk to you, but should healthy people go and see the doctor?
Well, I think so.
Okay.
I wouldn't be a very good GP if I didn't say that.
Right.
So we don't get, of course, not many healthy people come and see me, but I think the reality is that everybody gets something wrong with them or is at risk of something wrong happening in the future. So as GPs, we have all sorts of screening and preventative health activities that we do to try and make sure that people are healthy, or find things early so that we can treat them early, but then also try and prevent illnesses from coming on in the future. So should healthy people come and visit the doctor? Yes, because often there's something which, even if you don't experience it now, you're at risk of getting sick, because everybody gets sick in some way.
Sometimes there's underlying sickness that is there.
Right, so that's why we do your blood pressure.
Yeah. Now, so you're a GP, you're used to diagnosing what's wrong with people, but what about more broadly with the world? Is physical health the only problems that we have in the world, do you think?
Oh, of course not. I mean, look around you. You only have to look at the news to see that there's things wrong with the world, don't you? Our relationships break down. We make mistakes. We have psychological disease. We have loneliness and fear and disappointments. These things are not necessarily physical diseases, but they're definitely there and they're real.
And they're not necessarily things that a doctor can prescribe. You don't get a Panadol and a lie down to solve loneliness.
That's right. It's not going to help. Yeah, that's right.
Now, it's alleged that the Times of London once sent out an inquiry to famous authors asking the question, what's wrong with the world today? English novelist G.K. Chesterton replied with the following letter. Dear Sirs, I am yours, G.K. Chesterton. Was Chesterton right that somehow that we are the cause of the problems in the world?
Look, I think it's very easy to say, outside the world there is all these problems, or outside of myself, in the world there's all these problems. But when we look inside, I think we all have regrets, we all have guilt, we all have hurts. We've got times when we've disappointed people or hurt people or caused the problems in our own lives. And so I don't think anyone escapes from that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I mean, is that a bit overly negative? Like to say that everyone in the world somehow is a bit sick, like not just physically?
I was thinking about how you say this. Like, I'm a doctor, I see sick people, so maybe my view is wrong. But I think it's not to deny that there is good in people. It's not to deny that that we do good things and that we can be helpful and loving and caring and think outside of ourselves. But I think everybody experiences and has done things that we regret, and there's no getting away from that. So I don't think it's overly negative. I think it's just realistic.
Now, as part of Bigger Questions, we also reflect on the Bible because, surprisingly to many, it offers answers to the big questions of life. Now, but before we do that, we're interested to hear about why you believe the Bible is worth following. So, Gillian, what was it about an encounter with Jesus that convinced you to become a Christian believer?
Yeah, I think I've encountered God since I could remember. My parents and family loved Jesus and always taught me about God. And so I think in some ways it wasn't like suddenly God came in and changed my life from not knowing him. But I think part of that growing up as a Christian means that you do know a lot about good and bad and morals and I guess I consider myself, my parents might disagree, but quite a good person, a good child, good kid. I did my best to avoid getting into trouble, and I would always run away if I thought, oh, I'm even getting close to getting into trouble in this situation. But
so you're generally a kind of a good kid.
A good kid.
Yeah.
I think so. But I think despite that, or even perhaps because of that, when something did go wrong or I was guilty of something, I felt it, and I realised that no matter how good I was as a kid, there was always going to be things that I did that were wrong, and not just like little things, but things which hurt other people and damaged other people. So there
was a particular time when you hurt other people. I'm going to share about that. This is an opportunity to share. That's right. Get it off your chest. Get it off your chest.
I am a bit ashamed about it, as Rob knows. But I think there was a time in primary school where all I wanted to do was fit in the crowd and to be, I guess, part of it. Myself and some friends, we decided to start a club. Bit like the babysitter club, you know, but our club was actually like around excluding other people, and the teachers and parents quickly found out, and it all got dismantled, and that's a good thing. But I think the reality of that is, I still feel really guilty about it, because in my striving to fit in, I was actually excluding other people, and how much does that hurt them and hurt the people around me, like. And of course, there are things that I do every day which still hurt people, and I can't avoid that. But I guess it really struck me of how no matter how much of a good kid I wanted to be, I wasn't perfect, and yeah.
So what changed?
What changed? I think as I grew, I began to understand and seek that God actually loves me unconditionally, and He accepted me, and I didn't need to fit in with the crowd, because I fit in with God, and He can cover all of those things that I did wrong, and I didn't need to be perfect. because I couldn't be. No matter how good I was still going to fail. So, but in God's eyes, he loved me, and he looked at me through Jesus' perfect life, and he accepted me just as I was. And so in his family, and if I place my identity in his family, then not only could I fit in, but I could be free from that trying and that having to be good and perfect all the time, which I couldn't be. So there was my purpose.
Now, was that difficult? I mean, you, as someone studying medicine, obviously a high achiever, in some ways wanting to solve the world's problems or fix the world's problems, but you couldn't actually fix yourself. Was that difficult?
Right, yeah. I think you're right. As in the medical profession, we're all pretty much perfectionists.
Right.
So we like to be perfect. We like to achieve things and not fail.
Yeah.
And yes, it's hard to admit to yourself that you can't be perfect yourself. That even the deepest thing that you're trying to achieve and be perfect in, you can't do. So definitely humbling. But also in coming to God with that, it's freeing, because I can't achieve perfection in myself, and in so many things, I can't achieve perfection, even if I fail my exams, which is a big thing in medicine. Actually, it doesn't shake who I am. My identity is in God. He sees me through Jesus, who is perfect, and he loves me no matter how imperfect I am, no matter how much of a failure I might have been. He loves me, and that's amazingly freeing. I can actually then strive to do my best and to do the great work that, as well as I can, and try and help the world and solve the world's problems. I don't think that's going to happen, but I can try and do that, free to know that that when I fall short, because I probably will, it's okay.
You're okay.
Yeah.
You are somebody in Christ.
I'm somebody in Christ. That's right.
Yeah. Today's big question is, what is wrong with the world? The Bible offers an answer to this big question, an answer which is perhaps somewhat uncomfortable. Indeed, chapter 2 of the Gospel of Mark, which is one of the 4 biographies of Jesus' life that we have, describes a time when Jesus was having dinner with many tax collectors and sinners. Now, Gillian, are you surprised that Jesus, a powerful and respected religious leader, eats with sinners?
I guess in some ways it's strange. If Jesus was powerful and respected and religious leader, then you would think that he'd want to increase his power. He'd want to be around other respectable people. He'd want to make sure that he kept his...
Grease the wheels.
Grease the wheels, yeah. Kept his reputation. But when you look at the life of Jesus, I'm not that surprised, because Jesus did seem to go out of his way to seek out the downtrodden people and the marginalised people, and he was compassionate and loving to everybody. So it doesn't entirely surprise you.
No. But the religious leaders were unimpressed with Jesus eating with such people, and retorted, "Why does he eat with tax collectors and sinners?" On hearing this, Jesus said to them, "It is not the healthy who need a doctor, but the sick. I have not come to call the righteous, but sinners." Now, Gillian, as a doctor, what strikes you with Jesus' response here?
There's 2 things. Jesus came for the sick. So just like in general, as a doctor, you're there to care for sick people. And the other thing is, it's not just about people who are sick, because as we've already talked about, everyone in some way is sick. But he's come to seek those who acknowledge that they're sick. So the righteous people he's talking about here, I think, in some way will have some sickness.
Right, but they don't necessarily acknowledge it.
But they don't acknowledge it. So,
okay, right, yeah. So who are so you've kind of alluded to it, but who are these sinners that Jesus has come to call?
Well, in this passage, it's the people of dubious moral standing.
It's one way of putting it, I suppose.
Indeed. Probably the prostitutes and people who've done wrong things from society's point of view. But I think who he's come to call is really everyone. He's actually trying to highlight to the religious leaders here that that in some way they too are sinners themselves.
Yeah. So why would Jesus draw a parallel between himself and a doctor?
Well, people come to see me when they've got something wrong with them, and they're sick, and they want help, and they want some sort of treatment. And Jesus came as someone who was coming for the world, who's morally broken, morally sick, and he offers a treatment. And so it's a pretty pretty neat
Well,
parallel.
the treatment he offers is a little bit different, perhaps, than what you offer.
Right. So I don't fix people myself. I offer treatments. I offer medicines or surgeries or whatever it is.
Or a lie down.
Rest, fluids. Yeah.
That's right.
But what Jesus offers is himself. So he is the treatment.
Yeah. So he's not just a doctor, but he's also
He's
the
also
treatment.
the
I mean, would that be something that would be attractive to you, perhaps, if you could offer not just the treatment, but make it happen as well?
Well, absolutely.
So,
If you have a guarantee that that you can actually fix someone, like sometimes we throw medicines at people and we hope that they work, and all the scientific evidence would suggest that they should, but we can never guarantee it. But if we could offer something that is guaranteed to work, guaranteed to fix someone, then absolutely that would be great. Yeah.
so do you think it requires humility to accept what Jesus says here?
Yes. So just like it requires humility to accept that you might be sick and in need of an expert advice from a doctor, it requires humility to accept that you have your own failings within. Absolutely.
Is that why some people don't want to take Jesus?
Probably. I think, look, we teach each other that, we are in control of our own lives and that we can fix ourselves, and all we need to do is to, get a bit more healthy or work a bit on this and work a bit of that. But to actually accept that we're never going to reach perfection. We're never going to be perfect in ourselves or achieve perfection in ourselves. That takes humility. And it takes laying down our own lives or own self-perception and accepting the reality of who we are.
Now, atheist speaker and writer Dan Barker said, "We atheists don't need to go to the doctor. There isn't anything wrong with us." Now, Barker isn't speaking in a physical sense. He's speaking in reaction to the idea of being painted as a sinner. He says that sin is an imaginary disease invented to sell you an imaginary cure. How do you react to Barker's statements?
It would be nice, wouldn't it? if we didn't have anything wrong with us, or we just, it was, we could be perfect, or we're just making up the idea of sin. But I think, as I've said, I can look back on my life and see things that I regret or ways that I've hurt people, and I think everybody can, and that's the sin, isn't it? Everyone has small or big things that we feel guilty about. We regret.
Your club.
My little club.
That's right.
That's right. And I do. Yeah.
Thank you for sharing. I realise that this is difficult for you. Yeah.
I think sin is real. Sin is there. And it's just how we deal with that is the difference.
So do you think he's a little bit naive, perhaps, to suggest that nothing's wrong with us?
I think he's optimistic. Probably naive,
Right.
yes.
Well, optimistic is good. I mean, it's good to be optimistic, but there's also a sense in which we need to be realistic, do you think?
Well, that's right. I think he's not being realistic. It's like, like the smoker who will smoke and thinking that it's not going to do them any harm when we know that it will. Yes.
So how do you react when a sick patient thinks they're fine, when they say, like the song, "I don't need no doctor"?
I think it's frustrating for me when people don't think that there's anything wrong, especially when you've shown them, here's the problem. It's not that we want to be, as doctors, arrogant and, above other people and say, "Oh, look, here's all your problems. You need to fix them." It's actually just that we care. We want people, in the medical profession, what we want people to live healthy, thriving, happy lives and to have a long life. And so if we see people who we can say, "Look, this is a problem, you can do something about it and you should do something about it," and then they just ignore that, it's very frustrating because the answer's there in front of them, and it might take work, it might take humility, but it's right there. And it's very frustrating if they don't take that up.
They refuse it.
Yes.
Yeah. Now, questions just come in, which I'll ask you. Does Jesus deal with our regrets too?
Absolutely. I think we still regret things in Jesus, but Jesus, in his death, he forgives all of our sins, past and present and future, and he covers over them. It doesn't mean that we don't regret them, but I think it means we're free from them.
Now, Dan Barker also said, if salvation is the cure, then atheism is the prevention. Just don't get sick. Is it possible for a person to not get sick?
I think we've pretty much said no.
Okay, yes. So what is then the solution?
Well, I mean, Jesus is the solution. Jesus came into the world, he lived a perfect life, He died as a substitute to take the punishment for our sins, our regrets, our failures, and he rose again. He sets us free from those. He forgives us from those, all those things, wipes the slate clean, and he gives us his Spirit to help us to live, more and more like him. He's the answer. Yeah.
And is what he offers, this offer that Jesus brings, is that good news for you?
Absolutely.
Yeah?
Yeah, yep.
Because it, as you said, it liberates you?
It liberates me. It frees me. I can strive to be the best at all things that I do in my life, but when I fall short, which I do and I will, I'm sure, ongoing in different ways, Jesus covers that.
Now, another question has just come through. Do you get people who think they're sick but actually aren't? How do you react to that?
That is a really great question. I think that actually is a sign that they're sick in a different way. So yes, we do get patients who think that they're sick but they're not. And it's perhaps like the person who comes in with a virus but thinks that they've got pneumonia.
Man flu, perhaps.
Man flu, great. So yes, there's the answer. And I think often that is a sign that that perhaps what their sickness then, or is the worry and concern over what it is that that's going on, and maybe we need to address that rather than worrying about the cough.
So there's still potentially an underlying sickness, but it just might be...
It might be different to what they think.
And that's your job as a doctor.
Exactly.
To diagnose that.
Yeah.
So Gillian, wrapping up, our big question today, what is wrong with the world?
I'm a doctor. I can see that there is lots of physical sickness in the world. There's lots of things wrong with the world. The world is broken, but I think the world is broken not just in a physical sense in our bodies, but inside of us. We have a moral sickness that we need healing from. Yeah.
And there's a solution.
And there is a solution. Jesus, yeah.
Let me leave you with the Bible's answer to the big question, what is wrong with the world? From Mark 2:17. Jesus said to them, "It is not the healthy who need a doctor, but the sick. I have not come to call the righteous, but sinners." I look forward to you joining us next time for bigger questions. Please thank our guest today, Dr. Gillian Porter.
Thanks for listening to Bigger Questions. If you want to be part of the live audience or subscribe to the podcast, go to biggerquestions.org.